My boyfriend and I really screwed up. As a prank, we wrote a fake list of rules for our dormitory. You know the type of story. Somebody gets a new apartment or a new job and finds a list of weird rules to follow. If someone knocks at 3:11 a.m., meow like a cat but don't answer. If the copier starts when nobody's in the copy room, go to the break room for 10 minutes. They break the rules and awful things happen. One afternoon in my room, Brian and I were showing each other our favorites on Reddit. He started making up rules for our dorm, Millard Hall. If you see someone picking their nose, he said, chant, snot, snot, thanks a lot, or you'll get their booger in your nose tomorrow. I laughed and tried one. If you penny the door of room 307, my room, only use pennies dated 2002. Or what? You'll fall asleep in your next test. The fun of lists of rules stories is the weird consequences of breaking the rules. We started trying to think of scarier outcomes, and from there to scarier sounding rules. Pretty soon, Brian started writing them down. He intended to post them in the lobby as a joke. It was me who suggested slipping them under the doors of freshmen. We were both resident assistants. He was RA for 2nd floor north. I was RA for 3rd floor south. So we had an excuse to roam the halls any time of night, and we had lists of which residents were freshmen. Double plus uncool behavior for RAs, obviously, but I only intended it as a joke. Over the next couple of days, I kept having to stifle giggles in class as new rules popped into my head. After class, Brian and I compared notes, culling out the duds. Sometimes we didn't agree. He really wanted a classic, if someone knocks, rule, and I flatly refused, bored with them. We hammered out a final list. Rules only. Consequences left to the imagination. This is part of it. The ones that became important. Diet Pepsi. At the Pepsi machine in the lobby, never get a Diet Pepsi right after a Diet Mountain Dew. If you're not sure what the last can bought was, buy a mug root beer first. That's always safe. Howler. If somebody starts howling in the courtyard at about 3 a.m. on a Friday night, Saturday morning, don't turn on any lights. You can look out the window, but don't even turn on your phone or a flashlight. They're watching for lights. They find your room by counting windows. Oven pizza. Don't use the oven to reheat anything from Patsy's Pizza, not even sandwiches. Use the microwave, even if it makes the crust soggy. Water fountain. Don't drink from the lobby water fountain whilst there's sunlight on the thumb button. This only happens near the winter solstice early morning. Dollar bill. If you find a brand new dollar bill tacked to your door, Series 2003A, serial number starting with J804, you can take it, but spend it off campus. Don't put it in the lobby bill changer. Dropping in a church collection plate might be lucky. Movie poster. Sometimes a poster appears on the lobby bulletin board, always on green paper. Free movie in Chalfont Auditorium, Tuesday at 7:30. Ignore them. They go away by morning. Don't go to Chalfont Tuesday evening. Payphone. The payphone off the lobby hasn't been connected for years, but it still rings occasionally. Don't answer it. Orange rules. Sometimes rules like this appear, printed on heavy orange paper. If you get one of those, for the love of God, don't follow the room 307 inches or blue bathroom rules. I formatted them as a little trifold pamphlet and printed off about 40 on plain white paper. One night we slipped about 20 under the doors of freshman-only rooms on various floors. The next day I kind of held my breath, but nobody said anything, and we spread about 15 more that night. The second morning I saw a kid in the lobby with one of our pamphlets. He stopped Stella Poletsky, RA for 3 North, and showed it to her. She read it through. I saw a couple of quickly suppressed grins. She looked up and said deadpan, "Yeah? So? So are these for real?" Can't say, they just show up. But the last time somebody broke one, we never saw him again. The kid left so wide-eyed, he looked like a 7th grader. Stella walked the other way, grinning to herself. I hadn't counted on another RA playing along, but it tickled me. I printed off another 20 or so, and a couple of nights later we spread them to rooms where a freshman and an upperclassman shared. People were talking a lot about them and texting photos of them to each other. At the lobby Pepsi machine, I heard one girl shout at another, "Hey, buy a mug first!" People walked faster past the disconnected payphone and checked the sunlight before drinking at the fountain. A post-it appeared on the Pepsi machine that said, "Stick me on the last button pressed." Twice I saw somebody shift it to the Diet Mountain Dew button. Brian said somebody'd given him free root beer. Not once, but twice, because they didn't want to take a chance. Sean Brown, RA for 2 South, caught me in the hall one day. "Beth, have you seen these?" I looked at the pamphlet he handed me, obviously much handled, with penciled notes here and there. "I've heard of them. Haven't seen one yet." "Hey, that's my room number." I pointed at Orange Rules. "What an asshole." "Yeah. Well, Mom Franks," Millard's dorm mother, said to keep an eye out for whoever's passing these out. There's a couple of people pretty upset about them. I felt a twinge of guilt. I remember how stressful freshman year was, and more than a twinge of nerves. This really wasn't good behavior for an RA. Maybe even enough to get me or Brian kicked out. A few people, skeptics and attention seekers, were deliberately flaunting the rules. Bob Wester hung a Patsy's pizza box on the oven door, and when a freshman ran in the kitchen, all frantic about the rules, Bob's roommate slammed a textbook on a table right behind him. The freshman nearly peed himself. Rosie Crowell, RA for 1 North, made a point of waiting until somebody bought a Diet Dew before she'd buy her Diet Pepsi. Just plain annoyed at how many people took the rules seriously, she was trying to debunk them. And the next 2 Friday nights, well after midnight, some joker in the courtyard howled, "Ah, woo!" loud enough to wake people. Having a courtyard window myself, I began to wish we'd skipped that particular rule. As nervous as I'd gotten, though, I wasn't done. I printed a poster for a 20th anniversary showing of The Matrix on green paper left from a high school art project. I had about 15 sheets of orange paper, too. When I snuck it onto the lobby bulletin board, freshmen who'd been settling down freaked all over again. I prepared a second version of the rules. Different font, altered formatting, and 2 new rules. Blue bathroom. If your suite bathroom suddenly has blue walls one day, prick your finger and spread a drop of blood around the rim of the sink. The bathroom will change back overnight. If you don't, either you or a suite mate will die within a month. Room 307. If you penny the door of room 307 with pennies dated 2002, you will come into money within a week, at least $125. I finished off my orange paper printing these, but I didn't slip them under doors. Instead, I kind of dropped them here and there, lying on the stairs in the kitchen microwave, tucked between lobby couch cushions. Soon, people were arguing about them. I got a big kick out of threatening doom to whoever put my room number in the rules. I did more random hall prowls at odd hours, looking for the perpetrators. It was perfect camouflage for my guilty secret. Even better, someone really did penny my door. If you've never lived in a dorm, know that the room doors open inward. Take 2 pennies, or 3, depending on the door's fit. Slide them up to the gap between the door and the metal frame right above the knob, then hammer them into the gap. Pressure on the door latch makes it nearly impossible to turn the knob, or, if the door's locked, to draw the deadbolt. In the middle of the night, I heard 2 hard whams on my door. Pretty common when people get rowdy, but in the morning, I couldn't open my door. I called Brian, who came across to check. Yeah, it's pennies, and they're hammered right in there, not going to be prying them out. Well, for some students, especially women, that might have been a problem, but I keep a small toolkit, so it only took me a couple of minutes to knock the hinge pins out. Brian shoved the entire door into my room a few inches. I heard the dull tink of pennies falling and murmuring from women who'd gathered. Yeah, they're 2002, Brian said. 2002D, I heard gasps of fear. Brian helped me wrestle the heavy door back onto its hinges. So we just watch for whoever gets a chunk of cash all of a sudden, I said. And they can pay the school fine. I glared at the gathered women. This is a safety violation. Not just a prank. What if there had been a fire and I couldn't get my door open? Not really a big concern. The walls and floors are all concrete. But I wanted to keep up my annoyed facade. But that's an orange rule, a red-haired freshman protested. You aren't supposed to follow them. Something bad's gonna happen to them, another girl said. Serves them right, I grumped, winking at Brian. I had one more escalation waiting. The dollar bill description wasn't random. I had about 20 like that, left from 40 my dad had given me as a kid, to buy snacks while at church camp. I'd loved the crisp new bills so well I'd avoided spending them. Now I dedicated 4 to the cause, tacking them to the doors of people who'd been skeptical, like Rosie Crowell and a freshman named Celia. By the next afternoon, everybody in the dorm had seen one. Celia, a plump, pretty Hispanic girl, was amused. But Rosie was distinctly rattled. You can't just run to the ATM and get brand new 16-year-old bills, she pointed out. She said she'd take hers to church. But Rosie continued to call the rules a prank. So when her Diet Pepsi tried to kill her, it scared the cow out of me. She'd made a point again of waiting until somebody bought a Diet Dew before getting her DP. And she'd nearly made herself late for class. So she popped the can, chugged it down, and tossed it in the recycle bin before heading out the door. From my seat in the lobby, I heard screaming. Running to the door, I saw Rosie bent over. She'd dropped her pack and sat down, cradling her hands, which looked swollen and red. By the time I got down the steps, her fingernails were spurting blood. She was scraping her Nikes on the sidewalk. I bent and unfastened them. I could barely pull the shoes off. Her feet were so swollen. Her half socks were already sodden red. People were dialing 911. Rosie passed out before the ambulance arrived. Later, we heard she got transfusions to lower her blood pressure. Stella Palesi called Brian because I was hysterical. Brian found me sitting on the blood-spattered sidewalk, one Nike still beside me. I kept crying. They're not real. They're all fake. Fortunately, I didn't say, we made them up, or some such. I came across as disbelieving, not guilty. Brian hustled me up to my room and I told him what had happened. He took it a lot better than I did. Even though at this point we still didn't know, but what Rosie bled out in the ambulance. What did I do? I kept asking him. What did I do? You didn't do nothing, he said. Hush up. It's not your fault. I let myself be soothed that time. It's not your fault. But it was hard to convince myself of that when Celia Flores lost 3 fingers feeding one of my dollar bills to the snack machine. She wanted a cinnamon roll, so she fed in $2. 4 people nearby said when the second bill sucked in, the machine attacked her. They all told it differently, but it came to this. The panel with the coin slot and push buttons opened up and grabbed her right arm. She tried to pull loose, and it closed on her fingers, chopping off all but her index finger and thumb. 3 of them said the machine growled. 2 said they heard weird music from it. 2 said the room lights dimmed and turned blue. That afternoon, I wrapped the rest of my $2,003 bills in the rest of my green paper, stuck them in an envelope, and mailed them home. I deleted all the rules files off my laptop, then ran an app to scrub deleted files. I didn't get Brian's reaction. He was shocked at Celia's injury, but at the same time, he seemed excited. We'd dated for over a year, but I began to wonder about him. Friday night, I was in Brian's room working on psychology when a freshman, all upset, knocked at the open door. Oh, cow, I thought. What now? But he was asking if Brian could help his roommate with a scholarship problem. There's a whole office for that in admin, Brian said. But they're gonna kick him out. He's gotta find $3,000 this week. Huh? Slow down, what's wrong? The roommate, Mark, had lost a state scholarship from misreporting something on his application, but the money was already paid to the school for the semester. Now the state wanted their money back, and the dumb kid was about to get kicked out. Brian asked an obvious question. Why are you coming to me? Mark's too freaked out. He broke a rule. I froze, but Brian burst out laughing. Mark pennied room 307, didn't he? The kid looked guiltily at me, obviously knowing who I was. Yeah, he admitted. And a week later, he gets a letter from the state. He was almost sniffling. I told him it was an orange rule. Brian wasn't just excited now. He was absolutely hilarious. He chased off the freshman and took one of our original pamphlets off his desk. Nothing incriminating. As RAs, we'd both collected them. He went down the list, checking some rules, crossing out others, putting a question marks on a couple. Nah, that's bull cow, he muttered. That one. Maybe that one? I jerked the list away. What's wrong with you? People are getting hurt. Rosie lost her fingernails. Celia lost fingers. Don't you care? Yeah, I care, but it's not your fault, so don't get flaky. I couldn't stand him in that mood. I went back to my room to sleep alone. I woke to the most blood-chilling sound I've ever heard. It was a howl, but way more than that. It went up and down like a yowling cat. It growled and screamed and hooted and wailed. It echoed in the courtyard like the ambulance that had carried off Celia. But I could tell it was a single voice. It wasn't human. But at the same time, no one animal should have made all those noises. I knew I should go to the window, try to see who it was. The courtyard's brightly lit, but that horrible howl froze me to my bed. I pulled a blanket over my head and shivered, then bounced right in the air when somebody pounded on my door. Beth! Beth! Wake up! I kicked off the covers and grabbed my phone. 3:07 Saturday. Oh, cow. The girl at the door was a freshman named Carla, half frantic in t-shirt and panties. Rayma turned on the light! I told her not to, but she opened the window and called whatever it was an asshole. I tried to reassure her, but I was too damn scared to be convincing. Can I stay in your room? I can't stay there. So I let her sleep on my spare bed, wrapped in my giant bath towel. After the sun came up, we went to her room. Rayma, a junior, was gone. I said, she probably went to breakfast early, but Carla said Rayma always slept late on weekends. She didn't show up that day, or the next. She hasn't been seen since. I should have made Carla bring Rayma to my room too. Brian and I weren't speaking anymore. If I'd thought there was anything anybody could do, I'd have confessed to Mom Franks. But there was no explanation for what was happening. We'd made up completely bogus rules, and now people were disappearing and being hurt, but Brian still acted like it was all a joke. I'd thoughtlessly carried off the list of rules he'd marked up, the one I'd snatched from him. He'd checked or put a question mark on several. They're the ones I listed at the beginning. By now, I'd seen or heard of most of them affecting somebody. Then, the rules came after me. The Tuesday morning after Rayma disappeared, I shuffled into the bathroom for my shower. Millard Hall used to be men only, with big communal bathrooms, then was remodeled into suites, each with 2 double bedrooms and a shared bath. But the RA rooms, next to the stairs, have just 1 bedroom and a tiny bathroom. I turned on the shower, grabbed my hairbrush, and started yanking my hair around, waiting for the water to warm up. Looking in the mirror, I realized the wall beside me was blue. The walls in Millard are all a dirty white, the kind that never looks clean. The shower and the cabinet still were, but the concrete block walls were a pale, powdery blue. I shot out of the bathroom like a spitwad from a straw. The pocket of my robe caught on the doorknob and ripped open. I stood shaking in the middle of my room, trying to remember if I'd seen the walls last night, if anybody could have been in my room. Well, Mom Franks could have been. She had a master key, but the RAs don't get them. If there's a bad problem, we have to get her. I sniffed the air. Paint smell lasts for days, and my room smelled just like always. Oh God, were blue walls an orange rule or not? I couldn't remember. I pulled out the pamphlets I'd collected. Blue bathroom, an orange rule. The white rules said to ignore the orange rules, but blue bathroom said if I didn't do the right thing, either you or a suite mate will die within a month. As an RA, I didn't have any suite mates. If it hadn't been for Mark and his lost scholarship, I might have broken down and bloodied my sink. Bless you, Mark, you poor dumbass. I shuddered at a sudden recollection. Just after I printed the orange rules, I imagined it would be hilarious if an orange rule said, don't obey the white paper rules, oven pizza, or water fountain. If I'd actually included that, I wouldn't know which rules to trust, Mark or no Mark. Wednesday morning, my bathroom was dirty white again, and I cried with relief. But Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday were rough in Millard Hall. Everybody, freshmen to seniors, had shared copies of the rules on their phones, and everybody checked them frequently. When the disconnected payphone rang Wednesday evening, a girl in the hall screamed, and a guy in the lobby fainted. Thursday, somebody visiting from Gartner Hall made the mistake of answering the payphone. Whatever he heard made him beat his ear to a bloody pulp with the handset until he knocked himself out. Some jerk got caught shuffling the Post-it on the Pepsi machine, and a girl knocked him right out with a calculus textbook. A dozen people saw her do it, but nobody recognized who it was. Somebody clogged the spout of the water fountain with superglue. Bob Wester's roommate rewarmed a Patsy's cheese pizza in the kitchen oven, took one bite, then started throwing up blood and huge earthworms. And Friday afternoon, somebody else got a bad Diet Pepsi and was taken away, blood gushing from his hands and feet. Just after midnight on Friday, I was startled awake by knocking. Cow! I did not want to hear what was wrong now. I jerked open the door, and there stood Brian, my ex-boyfriend. What are you doing here? Though the dorms are co-ed, we aren't supposed to have opposite visitors in our rooms overnight. I mostly turn a blind eye to discreet overnights. But for RAs, the rule is especially important, since we get called out at any hour. He pushed his way in like I'd invited him. Somebody's going to talk to you soon, he said. You've got to say the right thing. Oh, cow, did admin find out about us? I pulled on jeans and a flannel shirt, not wanting to talk to him in panties and tea. Nobody in the school has a damn clue. I'm talking about the circle. They're witches, a gang of witches. I laughed out loud. Witches! You're not from around here. You wouldn't laugh if you were. It's true. A lot of the local kids believe in all sorts of weird cow. They say in the 70s, a kid was killed right outside Millard Hall, taken right off the street by a monster from the bird sanctuary. So what? Some Wiccans did all this cow with our rules? Wicca is bull cow for kids. These are real witches, hill magic that really works. And I'm trying to join them. You? You're gonna be a warlock? Warlock's an insult. I am a witch, and this is like kind of an audition for the circle. I mean, at first it was a joke, but then I decided I could use them. I just looked confused. I did it, Brian said. I made a spell that made our rules work to show the circle I could. He pointed a finger at me. Somebody from the circle's gonna find you in the next few days. You can tell them, live in dorms long enough, you learn to scream in a whisper. You cowhead! Do you know how many people you've hurt? That's part of it. Witches can't be bound by human rules. I raved at him, keeping my voice low to not wake my neighbors. He just laughed off my fury and insisted I tell the circle how he and I made up the rules between us. I raved some more. Even without raising my voice, I was getting hoarse. Then my fear of waking people came to squat, because some drunk came upstairs yelling and slamming doors. Brian wouldn't leave after that, afraid he'd get caught, but I made him use the spare bed. You're not ever touching me again, I said. I didn't even undress to sleep. I spent a long time lying awake, angry and scared, and wondering if Brian was just nuts. Witchcraft couldn't be real, but how else could joke rules make people lose fingers and barf worms and disappear in the night? I finally dozed. That god-awful hooting, wailing howl in the courtyard woke me up. No lights! I heard Brian hiss. I know, I hissed back. It's my floor that lost somebody, dip cow. I went to the window and looked out, trusting the rules that it was safe. I couldn't see anybody, but I couldn't see the whole courtyard. And who knew but what the howler was invisible? I didn't let Brian see the phone in my hand. Quickly, before I changed my mind, I pressed it flat against the glass and hit the power button and held it there until the screen went back off. Grabbing my keys and my Crocs, I told Brian, I'm going downstairs. Don't fudge with my stuff. I left the door unlocked on my way out. I don't really know if that mattered to the howler or not. That was 3 days ago. Nobody's seen Brian since. I thought if the Howler got Brian, the spell or curse or whatever he put on the dorm would go away. But today, the old payphone rang again, and I barely stopped a kid from answering. So now I'm hoping somebody from the circle, whoever they are, really will come talk to me. Maybe they can remove the curse. Does anybody on here know how to undo a curse like this? I haven't been able to get into Brian's room to see if he left any instructions or formulas or anything. Maybe I can convince Mom Franks I left some personal stuff in there. Maybe from now on we'll have to give everyone in Millard a real list of rules.